right, let's jump straight into this one because, wow, what a night. We are unpacking an absolutely epic, super tactical, and honestly profoundly controversial piece of history that just went down in Philadelphia at UFC 330. We're talking, of course, about Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry. This was a clash that promised us a masterclass, but what it actually delivered was a 25-minute war of attrition that has left the entire MMA community completely divided. So in this explainer, we are breaking down the data, the massive momentum shifts, and the core scoring debate that made this matchup so unforgettable. And it really all starts with just one number, 17. Just think about that for a second. That is the number that now stands entirely alone in the UFC history books. With this incredibly hard-fought victory, Islam Makhachev officially surpassed the legendary Anderson Silva for the longest winning streak in the history of the promotion. 17 consecutive times making that walk to the octagon and 17 times getting his hand raised. It is a totally staggering milestone. But, as the confetti was coming down in Philly, there was this massive echoing question that kind of started overshadowing the whole celebration. Did the judges reward true greatness, or did they simply reward a guy for holding on? That's the central controversy we're diving into today, because let's be real, this was not the completely dominant Sambo masterclass a lot of people expected. Instead, the pound-for-pound king looked surprisingly human, and a young challenger proved he absolutely 100% belongs at the highest pinnacle of the sport. Okay, part one, the champion takes control. Let's wind the clock back to the pre-fight narratives and look at this insane physical clash of styles. Just look at the sheer juxtaposition of what everyone expected versus the physical reality in the cage. Makhachev came in as this massive -350 favorite, carrying the immense grappling legacy of that Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov school. And standing across from him was Garry, the live underdog. Sure, Garry was giving up age and championship experience, but check out those physical advantages. He had a massive 5-inch height advantage, a 4.5-inch reach advantage, and he paired all of that with an elite 80% takedown defense. So the whole question before the bell even rang was, could Islam's chain wrestling actually penetrate that elite defense? So how did it actually play out? Let's walk through those chronological momentum shifts. Round one? Yeah, that went exactly how the Dagestani corner drew it up. Islam used his hand feints, initiated the grapple, and even though Garry defended that first entry, a wild scramble let Islam take his back. It was just pure neutralization up against the fence. But then round two brought some serious drama. Garry was trying to find his range with a sharp body kick, but Islam suddenly unleashed this dynamic right hand right into a left high kick that caught Garry completely flush. I mean, the challenger hit the deck, Islam swarmed straight into side control, and for a heart-stopping second there, it really looked like a finish was imminent. Garry managed to survive, but Islam decisively bagged that round. Which brings us to part two, the challenger strikes back. Because moving up and fighting at 170 pounds takes a very unique physical toll, and as we hit those middle rounds, the momentum shifted violently. By round three, Makhachev was visibly fatigued. He was breathing heavy, and Garry, he finally found his rhythm on the outside, perfectly exploiting that massive physical reach advantage we talked about earlier. Garry stuffed a really desperate takedown attempt from the champ and just started peppering him. We saw brutal body kicks, roundhouses, and even a beautifully timed spinning back fist. For the first time in a very long time, the pound-for-pound king looked like he was just purely reacting instead of leading the dance. Round three confidently belonged to the challenger. And that sets the stage for the pivotal fourth round. Part three, damage versus control. This right here is where the scoring controversy truly set the MMA community on fire. Let's look as objectively as we can at what happened in round four. Garry was undeniably landing the heavier, much more impactful strikes while they were on the feet. And even when Islam did manage to successfully shoot and complete a takedown, Garry was incredibly active off his back. He was just drilling the champion with short elbows and punches from the bottom, actually slicing open a cut on Islam's face. So by the end of the frame, Islam is bleeding and battered. Yet, and here's the kicker, the official stats show Makhachev had over 3 minutes of control time in that round, despite landing only 3 significant strikes. 3 minutes, 3 strikes. Crazy, right? So to really get why everyone is arguing about this, you have to understand the criteria that absolutely divided the judges and analysts. It's the eternal MMA debate, damage versus control. Under the current scoring criteria, effective striking and grappling that either leads to a finish or inflicts real physical damage is supposed to be the primary judging factor. Pure positional dominance, meaning just controlling your opponent without doing damage, is supposed to be secondary. And that is exactly why round 4 became the ultimate flashpoint of the entire night. And you can see right here just how sharply this divided opinions. While two of the official judges sitting ringside actually favored Makhachev's control in that 4th round, the independent tracking tells a completely different, fascinating story. Out of 21 tracked MMA media members, 17 scored the fight for Ian Machado Garry. They prioritized the visible physical damage he inflicted. Only 4 sided with Makhachev. And it is definitely worth noting that the 3rd official judge, Eric Colon, also scored it for Garry based on that damage. So going into the 5th and final round, the fight hung completely in the balance. It was basically anyone's game. Garry started out incredibly strong, backing the exhausted champ up with these nasty liver kicks and crisp right hands. But this right here is where the champion did what champions do. With half a round left, a totally depleted Islam timed a desperate shot perfectly, drove Garry right to the fence, took his back, and locked in a super tight body triangle. Now, he couldn't secure the choke, but he essentially rode out the clock in the most dominant grappling position possible to seal the deal. When that final horn finally sounded, these were the objective statistics handed to the judges. Garry actually outpaced the champion in total strikes, landing 161 compared to Makhachev's 144, and he left the champion visibly bloodied. But you gotta look at those grappling metrics. Makhachev racked up a staggering 12.5 minutes of total control time and secured 7 total takedowns, which, by the way, is a new career high for him. Ultimately, those grappling numbers proved to be just way too much for 2 of the judges to ignore, which resulted in the 49-46, 49-46, 48-47 decision for Makhachev. Okay, part 4, Fallout and the Future. Because while this certainly wasn't some mathematical robbery, it was undeniably controversial. Let's look at the intense post-fight reactions and figure out what this blueprint means for the welterweight division moving forward. UFC CEO Dana White definitely did not mince words during the post-fight presser. While he acknowledged that it was a close fight with huge upset potential, he was highly critical of Garry's lack of killer instinct. He actually specifically called out Garry's choice to hug and shake hands with Islam right at the start of that pivotal 5th round. Dana White basically said, look, when you are fighting for a world title against a historic record, class goes completely out the window. You have to come out like a raging bull. And building on that psychological angle, analyst Dan Hardy offered up a really fascinating theory. Hardy suggested that Garry's unusually friendly approach throughout the entire fight week, he literally introduced his young son to Islam backstage, might have been this calculated tactic to disarm the champion. But, as Hardy argues, it actually backfired big time by diluting Garry's own necessary aggression and intensity right when he needed it most inside the cage. But regardless of all those strategic debates and what-ifs, one undeniable reality remains today. Makhachev's legacy is firmly, permanently secured. He didn't just break the all-time win streak record, he joined this ultra-elite club of only 5 fighters to ever successfully defend titles in 2 different weight divisions. And honestly, most importantly, he proved that even when he is completely exhausted, even when he's fighting a much larger guy, his elite Sambo wrestling remains the ultimate cheat code and neutralizer in the sport. That being said, Ian Machado Garry absolutely showed the rest of the world the blueprint to make the king look mortal, didn't he? Elite takedown defense, striking aggressively off your back, and using length to just drain the champion's gas tank. And that makes the road forward terrifying for Islam, because there is a rising crop of massive, dangerous welterweights waiting in the wings. We're talking undefeated finishers like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Carlos Prates, and Michael Morales. Even Makhachev admitted himself that a fully healthy Shavkat is the ultimate challenge right now. So Islam Makhachev is the record holder. He is the king. But at UFC 330, we all saw the gap show signs of closing. Now that we've laid out all the hard data, the scoring criteria, and the massive momentum shifts in this explainer, it is time for you to make the call. Based on the evidence we just went through, who did you actually have winning this historic war? Did the judges get it right by rewarding Islam's relentless positional control? Or did Garry do enough physical damage to leave Philadelphia with the gold? Let us know what you think.